So in this sessions, we are going to see about equity, agriculture, land reform. As I've spoken about equity, that it is a very, very important concept. The ownership was not getting transferred to the right person altogether. So we wanted to abolish the zamindari system, and yes, we did it to a great extent. It was another policy to promote equity in agricultural sector. Good morning and welcome to the second session of Indian economy from 1950 to 1990. Now we are going to see some very interesting topics in this session. So quickly moving forward, let us see what are the topics that we are going to cover. Okay, so in this sessions, we are going to see about equity, agriculture, land reforms, land ceiling, the loopholes of land ceiling. So there were some irregularity or the challenges that we are going to see. Green revolution, one of the most important factors that anybody can think about in agriculture. It changed the dimension of the country. The debate over subsidies. So these are the factors that we are going to cover today. Very interesting session. Each one of this topic will drive you through the core factors of the economy. So moving forward, equity factor. As I've spoken about equity, that it is a very, very important concept when it starts coming into the nation's economy altogether. Why equity is an important factor and how does it play a role? A country can have a high growth, the most modern technology developed, all the factors can be there inside the country, but it is also important to ensure that the benefits of each and every scheme reaches to every single person in this country. So equity is the most important thing, because unless and until you are able to give equal importance to every single citizen of the country cannot make a progress. So in India, we believe that equity is the first and the foremost factor through which you can reach those millions of people, make them believe, make them understand that they are also part of the economy. So the concept of equity, the concept of understanding itself is very, very important for us. Now, how do you see this equity is that in addition to growth, in addition to modernization, equity actually added greater value to the economic growth. How did this happen? When you see growth happening in a country, when you see modernization coming up in a country, you would be also able to see that there is a lot of importance that needs to be given to the people who participate in this activity. Every single one of us go to work hard in terms of earning money, and we contribute towards the growth of the nation. So when only a selected group of people are being given importance and the others are being taken out, then automatically it leads to disparity. So that is where equity comes into picture, where we want every one of us, every person to enjoy the benefits of the nation. So that is why equity becomes a priority in terms of the economic development. And that's why every Indian should be able to meet his or her basic need. Every Indian in this country should get food, shelter and clothing. And that is how the system will become even more powerful. The system will become even more meaningful altogether. So that is why we try to understand this factor very clearly, that this is how things will work in terms of economic development. This is very, very important. This is highly considered to be a factor which is being practiced in most of the countries, and that is how economic progress can be made. Moving forward, agriculture. The policy on agriculture, if you see in India, is quite different and quite relative also. Why? Because the independent India had to address the issues through the land factors altogether. In India, we always believe that the worker and the owner are not the same, because the person who works on the land is not able to enjoy the benefits of the land. The ownership is somewhere and the workmanship is somewhere. That is one of the reasons why the farmers in India were never benefited. They always thought that we are meant to work, and the owners always thought that we are meant to enjoy, we are meant to collect the taxes and revenue from them. So somewhere down the lane, the ownership was not getting transferred to the right person altogether. So that was the issue that we wanted to address in terms of agriculture. We also understood that there are some land reforms that needs to be made when we are talking about this growth, when we are talking about this sector altogether. The first thing that we wanted to do as a part of the land reform, as a part of the setup altogether, is that we wanted to see that at the time of independence, the rightful people get the right kind of ownership. We wanted to abolish the zamindari system, and yes, we did it to a great extent. We wanted to take away that zamindari system, what the Britishers had done to our farmers, had done to our system altogether, and we wanted to give each and every farmer the ownership of the land. We wanted every farmer to enjoy the rights of his land. We wanted every farmer to enjoy the benefits of his hard work that he has put in terms of production. The low productivity that was happening in terms of agricultural sector actually forced India to import food from the United States of America. So equity in agriculture called for land reforms. This is where I'm trying to point out the factor called as equity. If you look in any other sector which is quite well developed, which is quite settled with the system and process, equity is automatically there. Why? Because there's a lot of skilled labor force that is working. But in agriculture, we don't have a skilled labor force. We do not have a system or policy that can make the people understand the ownership rights and the benefits. So the equity in agriculture actually was brought in order to help in the land reform factor, in order to help in terms of bringing the land reform factor. So this is why we call the change in ownership according to the holdings factor. That was very much essential. Just a year after independence, steps were taken by the government in order to restore the land back to the hands of the farmer. So it was highly important, it was highly necessary for each one of us to understand that the farmer should be given back whatever he requires, whatever he owned altogether. So that is why we need to understand the concept of land reforms in economic development. Land ceiling was another policy. I would like to discuss about this land ceiling. Why? Because this is a factor that actually brought a change, that actually brought a different dimension altogether in terms of economic progress. Now, what was this land ceiling all about? It was another policy to promote equity in agricultural sector. Not to forget, we were interested to make agriculture as an equally important sector with due importance given to the nature of work. So farming and farmer are no way downgraded. They are considered to be the top in terms of the job factor altogether. They are as good as doctors, engineers, lawyers, anybody. So agriculture sector itself had an equity reform that was needed at that juncture. This means fixing the maximum size of land which could be owned by an individual. So we wanted to bring in a limitation. We wanted to bring in a benchmark. We wanted to go and tell people, to the farmers, that this is what you can own for the day. This is what you belong to. This is what is that the piece of land that you can own altogether. So we wanted to put in a restriction. We wanted to put in a limitation in terms of ownership of land. Why this was brought inside is that the purpose of land ceiling was to reduce the concentration of ownership in few hands. Now, if 20% of the people in India own 80% of the land, automatically the concentration of the land power, of the land concentration, goes into the hands of few people, and they try to dominate the 80% of the people. So we never wanted to bring in that 80-20 rule. We wanted everybody to get their rights. We wanted everybody that they get their right piece of land and that amount of land. the square feet of that land should be limited, not one person owning the 100% of the land and trying to dominate everybody. So we wanted the farmers to come forward, we wanted the farmers to get their identity, get their ownership and start transforming altogether. So that was very, very important as a part of the land ceiling altogether. Now moving forward, the land ceiling legislation, that is a very, very important concept which I would like to talk upon, which I would like to say to you all together. The land ceiling legislation also faced hurdles. Definitely yes. Why? Because moment that system was brought in, moment a change is brought into the economic system, you cannot see acceptance coming immediately. There were a lot of people who tried to put a barrier towards this system. There were big landlords who went ahead and they started filing cases in the court against the system. Why? Because they didn't want to change, they didn't want the ownership to go away from their hands. They wanted every single piece of land to be under their control, and they still wanted to dominate the agriculture sector by collecting the tax, by collecting the revenue, by telling the people that they are the owners and the farmers should work under them. So there was a lot of domination, there was a lot of factors altogether that started coming in terms of the thought process. So that is how, if you start seeing, they used this to delay the register of lands in their name to their close relatives and escaping from legislation. So they also wanted to avoid the tax, they also wanted to avoid most of the norms, rules and regulation, and they wanted to tell people that they are not interested in following the rules and regulation. The legislation also had a lot of loopholes which were exploited. Why? Because when the government framed the network, there were loopholes in the law, in the legal system, through which this landlords utilized it and they tried to escape. They didn't want that system to continue forever. So that was one of the reasons why they were not able to concentrate, why they were not able to look forward in terms of making the legislation perfectly 100% accepted in the system. So moving forward, the Green Revolution, one of the most interesting and the important factor that happened in the Indian agriculture. What was the reason for Green Revolution? Why was that agriculture taken as a priority, and how did we bring in the Green Revolution? At the independence time, let's try to understand, about 75% of the country's population was dependent on agriculture. So that's a straightforward statement trying to make us understand that 3/4 of the nation was completely dependent on agriculture. That is probably the only source of income, the only way of our dependency in terms of work. So agriculture was the backbone of India. Productivity in the agriculture sector was very low. We did not have much of productivity because of usage of old technology, not much of infrastructure facilities. We didn't have the proper, the water facilities or the electricity facilities or any other kind of support that could be given to the farmer in order to increase the production altogether. Now, India's agriculture is vitally depends on the monsoon. So we are a kind of people who always keep looking up to the sky, saying that when the monsoon season will set in and how we would be able to get that copious rainfall so that every one of the farmer is benefited and the agriculture sector keeps on moving forward. But then if you start looking here, most of the farmers were in trouble because they were not able to get adequate rainfall, they were not able to get adequate fertilizers, manure or any kind of support, which led to the downturn or a downtrend altogether in the agriculture. So the facilities were very, very few. That word is very, very important. We did not have the facilities. The stagnation in agriculture during the colonial rule was permanent, and because of that, there was a huge amount of deterioration, and we started understanding that the only way to revive agriculture is to start a revolution by producing high yield variety seeds. Let's understand this word, high yielding variety seed, HYV, because those were the seeds that can give a higher optimum output on the same kind of product. Now, for example, if you are using a high yielding variety seed in the production of rice, automatically you will be able to see that the rice production can be multiplied several times than the normal output. So that is where it becomes very, very important for all of us to understand that the Green Revolution literally created a turnaround for the Indian agricultural system. This is a very, very important and a crucial phase that you need to understand in terms of development. Moving forward, we also try to understand that the usage of seeds were required in correct quantities, in correct methodology, so that the farmers were able to be benefited and we were able to take it forward in correct propositions. So the way how it has to be implemented, the way it has to be created, the way it has to be developed, all those factors have to be told to the farmers, and the farmers were to be taught and developed in that particular manner, in that particular way altogether. The farmers who could benefit from HYV seeds were reliably very good, and the facilities was really coming up in a very good manner. As a result of this, the first phase of the Green Revolution in 1960s and 70s, the use of HYV, states like Punjab, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu were highly benefited, and because of this there was a lot of development that took place, and we were able to see the agriculture production going up to the next level. So definitely Green Revolution marked a new era of economic progress, both for the nation as well as for the agriculture altogether. Moving forward, we also try to understand that when it came to the HYV seeds, the challenges that we saw here is that in the second phase of the Green Revolution, that is in the mid-1980s, the HYV technology though had spread to many places and it started benefiting, the factors were also challenging because certain farmers were not able to adopt to the system, but the majority of them was able to get this particular technology, and because of which India started producing sufficient grains and our agriculture output started growing up to a next level altogether. That was one of the time period what I would like to say was a golden era for India, because agriculturally the production was increasing and we were able to see a huge amount of growth altogether. So this is very, very important, very, very interesting for all of us to know here. Next, the portion of agriculture, I would now bring in the challenges, was also that we were able to see here, because there were certain challenges initially to adopt, but then what we were able to see is that the agricultural produce going up and the farmer was able to take up the extra factor as the marketed surplus, because the extra growth, the extra production of the rice, wheat, whatever the products that were grown by the farmers, the extra part of it was taken up by the farmer and sold in the market as a marketed surplus altogether. As pointed out by the famous economist C.H. Hanumantrao, one of the greatest economists, he had told a good portion of rice and wheat produced during this revolution period. So an economist had observed and made a statement saying that during the Green Revolution we did make a rapid progress, and that was used as a storage factor or a facility altogether, because of which, if you start understanding, our Green Revolution actually helped India to overcome the food shortage. And as a result of this, the price of food grains declined relatively. Now the prices also came down, became affordable for the common man, and we also started seeing growth altogether. The low income group, who spent a large percentage of their income on food, the poor people, the people living below the poverty line, also got benefited. So food was produced in necessary quantity, in excessive quantity, and the lower income group, the poverty oriented people, also got benefited from a Green Revolution. So one single revolution was able to transform the life of people in India. And the Green Revolution also enabled the government to procure more amount of food and keep it as a storage for future benefit and use altogether. Now moving forward, there was this challenge that we need to understand is the debate over the subsidies. What are the debate over the subsidies? The economic justification of subsidies in agriculture to the present is a very, very debated question. What kind of subsidies that we need to give to the farmer altogether? Before going on, what is subsidy? Subsidy is a kind of discount. Subsidy is a kind of lowering down the prices, lowering down certain systems so that the farmer can get benefited. So it is generally agreed that, and it is necessary for the entire system to help the farmer to provide him the maximum benefits or facilities, both in terms of financial, both in terms of the necessary factors like manure or tractors or any kind of equipments altogether, and the farmer should not be taxed for any of the work that he does. So at some point of time, what the government was trying to do is that go towards the farmer, go more towards the pro approach towards the farmer and try to help him and try to make him come out of any kind of debts or any kind of work altogether. But then the challenge to the government is that when the agriculture system fails and they are not able to repay back the loan, or when they are not able to repay back the money taken up for the facilities, the banks and the financial systems get trapped in this system. But then any new technology that has also been looked up is a risky factor for the farmer, because the farmer does not know it and he does not have enough guidance to take it forward. So the subsidy cannot be something which is just written on the paper like a policy and being given to the farmer. If you are going to provide a subsidy to the farmer, you need to keep it up very well. Why? Because the subsidy will actually make a difference, and it has to be guided in a manner where the farmer can make the best use of it and the production can be done to the best level as far as possible. Now, moving forward, some economists also believe that once the technology is found profitable and it is widely adopted, subsidy should be in a phased manner. So that's what I was trying to say, that if technology is there and it can be utilized for the development, the technology needs to be taken in such a manner, phase by phase, so that the farmer understands and he takes his time to implement and grow out of it. Further, subsidies are meant to benefit but a substantial amount of the fertilizers and also the benefits the industry. Now let us try to understand the industry versus the farmer. One side, the farmer might get benefited because of the subsidies. The other side is that people who are involved in manufacturing agro-related products like fertilizers, like manure or any pesticides, even they are benefited and they should also get connected with the subsidies altogether. Therefore, it is argued that there is no case of continuing with fertilizer subsidies because it does not actually benefit the target group. Here what happens is that the industry starts taking the maximum value and the farmers do not get the value. Now the industries know how to make money by making new kind of technology, new kind of pesticides or any kind of thing, but the way it reaches the farmer, he is not able to get any benefits. He is paying the same amount of money, he does not know how to use it, he lands up on a financial burden altogether. So somewhere down the lane, subsidies was not a very, very interesting topic for the government to continue in the long run. So we wanted to adopt a new agriculture policy through which we could build a better India in terms of agriculture. Thus, that was the most important thing. If you see, in late 1960, Indian agriculture productivity increased sufficiently, enabling the country to become self-sufficient. Because of the Green Revolution, we could become a country, we could become a nation which is self-sufficient, which is self-reliant by itself, and this was an achievement, a moment of achievement to be proud, because our country moved away from all the negative aspect, moved away from all the struggle, and we became an individual nation who could concentrate on growth and development, who could concentrate on agriculture as a core sector and make India a self-reliant nation altogether. With this, we come to the conclusion of the second session. Thank you for joining me on this wonderful session. In the next session, we will be seeing about some of the factors of growth that happened in the year 1950 to 1990. I believe that this session would have added some value to you in terms of information and knowledge. Thank you once again for joining me today.